everyone, my name is Shamananda. Welcome to episode 10 with John Atkinson. We're going live. We're live right now.
What's up, everyone? How's it going? So good to be back for episode 10. A little milestone of what this is all about, you guys, sharing value with all of you in the collective. So good to be here with you, Guru, to share the space, and most importantly, just to have incredible discussions and just to share this with you and make impact all around the world. So
Woohoo.
our episode 10, you guys, is going to be all about life force energy. There's a lot behind life force energy and a lot of misunderstandings of what life force energy is. And so we're going to dive into that this week. Did you want to add anything, Guru, before we start?
Just really grateful to be here, and I'm really grateful for all of you that like to tune in and watch these lives. And we know that there are quite a few of you that make this into a regular weekly practice of meditation, listening, enjoying something quiet while listening to us after the fact, because a lot of you can't listen live in the moment. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm very grateful for all of you and that you're getting something out of it. And the feedback we've been getting is tremendous, and we're just really happy to be able to provide this for you. So please do send us questions. Right off the top, please do send us questions, because we really want to support you as much as we can. And until then, we're just going to make up our own questions and ask those. So go ahead, John.
I love that. I love that. And all we ask you guys too is, we don't do any like commercials or things of that nature. But just to share this, if it's impacting your life on, a different level, make sure you share this with someone you love, or maybe someone in your phone book that you're like, man, if I just sent this to them and said, hey, thinking of you, check this out, it could change their life. So appreciate you all for tuning in for episode 10 today. Let's begin. So the first question, Guru, is, I think people get this twisted a lot too, because I was thinking about it just the last few months as well, coming out of like winter season. We're going into springtime, the energy shifting individually, collectively. So the first question is, what is life force energy? And then the second question is, how related is that to your sexual energy? Because I think sometimes people get that twisted or throw it all in one thing where they try to understand what it is and how to navigate it, whether it's with themselves or at a collective level. So let's just start with the first one. What's life force energy?
Sure, sounds good. So, life force energy is prana, and prana comes from who you are as a spirit. So the spirit is an orb. Imagine an orb sitting in your chest, basically. So, and then it powers all the rest of your chakras and energetic systems. It's what keeps your body animated. So that's what fuels life force is the spirit. And so it doesn't come from the biological functions, although they do support with keeping the body running at an optimal level. But bottom line, what is going to offer supreme life to your body and all of its functions is the life force energy that comes from the spirit, because you are the spirit. Mm-hmm. And after your body decides to go, then the spirit is what continues on. Because it doesn't die with the body, it moves on. So as far as how your sexual energy correlates with life force, it's an aspect, right? It's an aspect that's connected biologically to your human form. Mm-hmm. So it is the co-creation between your human body and your spirit. And, it is a type of energy. It is a type of power. Kind of like energy emotionally, anger emotionally is a type of power. It's not necessarily the type of power you want to plug into, but it is a type of power that people use all the time when they feel powerless, right? Mm-hmm. So sexual energy is, in a lot of ways, it can be very healing. And because it has a powerful momentum to it, you can hop on that train and do all kinds of healing with it. With that being said, it's limited to how people perceive sexual energy to be, whether they believe it's something that's not good for them, or something that's shameful, or something that has been used to manipulate or use, or so whatever connotations you put on what sex means or sexual energy means, you're going to be limited to creating positive, negative, something that's effective for you in your life, depending on your belief system. So if you can remove the belief system entirely and understand that everything only has meaning that you give it, then you can
Mhm.
actually stop uh, polluting the pure energy of sexual energy in that way, keep it pure, and then you can do all kinds of things with it. You don't even necessarily have to just, I mean, people like to have sex in order to have orgasms and have pleasure a lot of the time, but that's not the only use for it. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You can heal a lot of things in your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual body with it if you know
Mhm.
how. Just go and ask a tantrika and they'll tell you all about it. They know very well what the power of that kind of force and energy and what it can do, and they're very good at healing that, extracting what doesn't need to be there, and keeping the purity of it and keeping it sacred. So
Mhm.
anyway, I hope that answers your question.
So good. Great start, Guru. I think you said a lot of great things that I just want to break down real quick. So, circling back around to the life force energy, you guys, it's really at a zoomed out level of the landscape of your four bodies. And your sexual energy, like you said, Guru, is one aspect of that. But if you do zoom out, the life force energy embodies everything, and that's who you are in the four bodies. But it's really related to your spiritual body the most, which then trickles down to the three other bodies. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. It starts with the spirit because it's who you are, and then it
Mhm.
trickles down from the highest vibrational to the lowest vibrational. So it'll be it'll be the it'll be the spiritual, and then
Mhm.
it'll be the emotional, and
Mhm.
then it'll be the mental, and then it'll
Mhm.
be the physical. From so
Mhm.
from densest to the least dense to the you know we're going
Mhm.
up the scale or down the scale in that case.
And I like how you always talk about tangibility and how people grasp their understanding of a concept, or also to just for them to be like, okay, that makes sense, maybe their aha moment. But I think why it gets, I think just in my lens of what I've seen out in the collective with life force energy, and then also someone talking about sexual energy, is the sexual energy is more tangible because our society plays it out more, in our day-to-day life, where our life force energy is what gives us life, how we carry ourselves, what energy are we bringing to the collective, what is draining that life force energy from us? What is trying to control us, or what are we trying to? I always ask myself, what am I creating rather than consuming? So,
Right.
creation over consumption. And we've come to a pivotal time, I think, in terms of where our society is going, is it's very consumeristic. And so, I think the confusion sometimes with the sexual energy could be consumption, right? We're going out and playing that out, or we're consuming it too, rather than taking that energy and going creating something, creating a solution for someone's life, creating your own solutions for your life, creating a business. Maybe you're into art, maybe you're into what you're passionate about. So just kind of touch base on what, in terms of like life force energy, is there anything such as like seasons for your life force energy throughout the year?
There is, for sure. But I did want to touch on something. just to backtrack just for a second, it's really important to understand something about sexual energy. When a type of energy has as much power as it does, such as sexual energy, there's going to be a move in humanity to control it because there's a lot of power behind that. And sexual energy is like that. So society has figured out all kinds of ways to control the most basic human instinct to propagate and to use it to their advantage, because that's how humanity works. There's a lot of great things about humanity, and there's a lot of things about humanity that is maybe not so great. And one of the not so great things is the way people are manipulated and used when it comes to their own sexual energy. So, and we can see it in religion, and we can see it in society, and the power plays along with it because the one thing that, the hormones that drive men, as an example, that sometimes the testosterone for some men is so powerful that they must act. It's this overwhelming urge, and I'm not saying that they don't have control. It's just this urge that becomes overpowering for some of them, and they have a really hard time, just with dealing with people or even women that they're attracted to, or the things that they say. Now, when I say this, I'm actually thinking of a friend of mine, and I'd like to share that story if that's okay. Okay, so he's also my client, but years ago, I saw him at an event that he had, and I spent a little time with him. And at the time, I was not available for a relationship, and he knew that, and he actually knew the person I was with. But he was still making very serious moves, as far as he tried to kiss me, he tried to grab me, he tried to do all kinds of things, and he was being really highly inappropriate. And I thought that was really strange for him, because he's a really nice guy. He's a really great guy, well, quote unquote. So it was only about a month ago, years later, he came back in, and we did a session for him. And I didn't mention what happened in the past, but by himself, he said to me, years ago, around that time, we were talking about just the time that, some of the events that happened around that time when we were, when we knew each other. He confessed that he was taking testosterone injections. And he said, I have to admit, I was really having a hard time with that, because I felt like I was becoming a predator, because the hormones were so strong. I felt like I couldn't even help myself. I needed to do something about it, and it messed with my mind, and it messed with my actions. And he said, and I really noticed in the moment, but when he stopped taking them, he really noticed, because of, it's just, I don't even feel that way anymore. I would never do that. So I think for some men who take testosterone for their for a number of different reasons, there's some men take it because they have difficulty with erections. Some men take it because they need it, and their life force is draining in their physical body, and all kinds of stuff happens. But sometimes that's what happens to certain individuals. They can't help it. And so I guess the point is, we're talking about the drive of sexuality with the female and the male. And with the male, sometimes I feel like they can't help it. But it causes problems with the females when if men's testosterone is too high, because if they're that driving and they're that predator-like, it really turns the women off a lot of the time. Some women actually enjoy it, and that's great. But for a lot of women, it turns them off. And, they talk about it all the time. Like, why did he have to be so aggressive? Why did he have to be so nasty? Why did he actually have to say those things when I saw him? And so, but it is a drive, and it is a force. And I feel like sometimes it feels like there's no choice. But this is where being aware of what you're creating is really important. All right. So if your hormones are out of control, and that goes for women too, because women go through that with their cycles, and they feel like they're completely justified in being mean and cruel because they're feeling a certain way, just because of whatever time of the month they're in. And for men, if it's their testosterone and they become predator like, we get to really look at our output and see what we're creating and make sure that what we're creating is something that we would feel is an integrity for us. So if we're trying to make higher choices and we're making other people uncomfortable because of what's happening in our bodies, we at least get to acknowledge that's what's going on and maybe try to do something about it, and take a different approach. So I just wanted to mention that. I hope it's supportive, but it did come up when you were talking.
I
So
like that. Yeah, I came across something recently. I think it was an article or someone that was talking exactly what you're talking about. Is both the men and female, everything's a hormonal response. And I loved how you touched on that because it is true. And I think in our society, and being a male myself, is it's a lot of talk about the women's hormones, but now as we get further along, like you brought up, is a lot of the male hormones, and how that's been navigated through society or depleted, where there is a lot of males, in terms of the testosterone and things, that are taking it for health reasons or to maintain muscle mass, not necessarily like the ones that are doing like steroids in the gym. We all are aware of their agenda, or maybe they're competing, but just the overall healthy levels of testosterone, with the hormonal response. So if that's out of whack, obviously, uh, that's going to go more towards acting out, as you brought up, and the unbalance, of the physical body. But I loved how you brought that up, and we were asking, in terms of life force energy and the seasons. Does life force energy have a season, whether it's at an individual level or also collectively? Um,
yeah, yeah. So seasons could mean literal seasons. Is it stronger in the spring, summer? It also could mean seasons of your life, when you're younger, when you're older, when you're a senior. So obviously, when you're younger, your life force energy is completely, it's going to go balls to the wall in a lot of ways for the most part. Usually, not everyone is going to go through that, but depending on your personality, and then as you get older, you might have seasons where you're going to feel as though you're more sexually active, and you feel safe to do so, and that season might change depending on where you're at mentally and emotionally too, and what you've been through in your life. So
mhm.
as a senior, there are definitely seniors out there that still love having sex, but they don't but not all of them do. Some of them just say, I don't care about that anymore. I've been there, done that. Doesn't I mean, I've had a million orgasms. I'm good. I know what it's about.
Yeah.
And sometimes physically, there's things that happen too where they're good. But there are plenty of
Mhm.
seasons. I know that, and my grandparents would probably be upset that I'm saying this because they passed on. But I know that well into their 80s, they were still doing all kinds of stuff in bed, and I'm so grateful for that. It's and people, oh, it's not gross. It's you're going to be a human being at one point. You're going to be that age, hopefully, if you're blessed enough to be, and you know, and then you're going to likely, uh, you know, get to decide if sex is right for you. But anyway,
Mhm.
um,
I love how you say that's like the aspect of the life force energy, because I think they just go straight for that side of it when it's like it embodies so much. So kind of dive a little bit deeper in as a collective. It's like when we see someone super energetic, um, obviously their life force is high in energy, and when we look out, what society is trying to do, is take that away for more of a control. So speak to that on, we come across people with different life force energies, Some even that I grew up with, some people are just known, maybe just to have low energy, right? But that doesn't mean they can't cultivate like a higher life force energy. So kind of talk about that. I know it's kind of broad, but like in today's world where someone stands out with a lot of life force energy, that could be a threat to the collective.
So I'm going to ask you to start answering that question. Somebody's in the hallway vacuuming and I can barely hear you. So I'll be right back.
Oh,
Go ahead and answer it. I'll be like 10 seconds.
okay, okay, sounds good. So you guys, it's the big time on the collective energy. Uh, compared to the sexual energy. So sometimes people throughout their life, they could go through, traumatic things, things that have happened. Maybe they started out in their teenage years with a lot of life force energy and pure energy, and something that might have happened to them. It could cause their life force energy to go down. There's a lot of adults that carry around trauma and things that have happened to them. And when they're liberated through, you know, the work that they do, sometimes that life force energy comes back. So you might think of someone right now that has really low life force energy. Well, they could have had a traumatic experience in their life or experiences where they haven't liberated them out of their body. And so they've been walking around with these traumas for a lifetime, and when they're liberated from that, then their life force energy can increase. I've seen people. I could think of someone in my life that has had a very traumatic upbringing, with a lot of family things going on, and they navigated within the last 2 years of their life, and this is current, is the last 2 years of their life. They've really cleaned up their trauma. They've really done the work. They've really uh, have dived deeper into their traumas, and all of a sudden they're a completely different person. They look different, their energetic fields, their aura is different, um, their mental body's different. All four bodies, like we talked about in other episodes, have been healed. And so that has correlated to a stronger life force energy. Because when I first met this person, their life force energy was not the greatest. It was acidic, it was toxic. And so, with that being said, there is possibilities of increasing your life force energy depending on what work you want to do, how deep you want to do it, and what really getting into the root causes of your trauma. So, but
Absolutely.
if
Absolutely. And,
you were,
actually, and I'd like to add to that because when it comes to people who become healers, authentic healers, they all go through that, all of them. So, and they're a perfect example of what happens when uh, you crawl out of the deep dark hole that happens in people's lives. It's part of the reason why we're here. So we'll learn how to get out, and we'll have all that knowledge, and we'll be able to use it to support people. But any healer that knows what they're doing has gone through that rite of passage in order to be able to do what they do. And they're a perfect example of, someone that transforms their life force and their energy. It's healable. It's definitely healable. And the healer gets to learn how to heal their own before they can heal anyone else. So they must go through that rite of passage. They must. And I'm speaking from my own experience in my life, and every single healer that I work with and train, they've all gone through it. They've all gone through it, and a lot of it's really gnarly stuff. I mean, it's not your atypical trauma either. It's trauma after trauma after trauma, where you think, "Wow, how are you still alive? This is amazing that you were able to crawl out of that and change everything." So it's really about changing, not just the mindset, but it's really going through all the four bodies and saying, what do I get to do here to continue to fight And it is a fight. You must be ready to go to battle with that part of yourself that wants to take you down, because at that stage you would have created a persona or your ego body who would believe all of the stories and the trauma and the evils that had happened to you would be your truth. And it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be. So, part of the ascension process for a healer is understanding that this is just a story. And I can create whatever story that I want. And I can step out of the story and into one that I actually want to create, because I get to have that in this life if I want to. And they
Mhm.
claim it and they take it and they go with it. And many people that have gone through that process, they might not explain it the way I did. They'll explain it in their way, but it's a very similar story. They understand that they can move past this stuff. Everyone
Mhm.
can. If as long as you have the courage to do it, you can do it. As long as you're not in complacency with it and saying, I don't want to, if you can get rid of that and just be open and say, okay, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go, even if it's slow. Just take little steps, but just you get to be open to do it. If you're not, you can't step out of complacency unless like that's one thing. It's just a big old stop sign that says you can't do that. But but if you're open to growth and you're open to releasing everything that's causing you pain that you created, by the way, because you made all those decisions inside of you, that's creating all of that pain. You can say that so and so down the street did it because of their actions. And yeah, they might have played a part, but you made the decisions for it to cause you pain, and you can make the decisions for it not to, too.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, anyway.
I like what you always tell me is like, because you're talking about getting out of your comfort zone to do the change, what someone already went through and chose to go through or didn't choose to go through. And it's like, I always love how you still bring it up is like, how, you know, John, how can you stretch a little farther, right? Stretch into your growth. And I think I've come to the point where you said it so many times that everything I do now is like, okay, I'm doing a real good job, or like I'm pushing myself. And then I'm like, you're always on my shoulder or in the consciousness of like, how can I stretch more? Right. Because everyone, when we stretch a little bit more than what we're in our mind of like we think we're capable of, that's when a breakthrough happens. Is when the change and the belief of really harnessing like, hey, I'm gonna go through with this, and I'm gonna change my trajectory of my life and change the people around me. But I always think of that when you talk about that is like, how much can we lean into that growth? And you always say it too, is like, what's your payout? I think it's huge. It's like, yeah, you're doing a great job, but can we lean a little bit more? And what's the payout if we do lean? It could be a life-changing moment, a benchmark, as I like to call it, is what's really pivoting your life. So uh the question that came up too was, so as a collective, and I notice it, I have three older sisters, two who have kids, and I had a question down here is women that have a lot of life force energy being able to conceive souls. So that was another question down the road of um, being that vessel to bring in souls into the life. Um, how do they continue to cultivate uh, their life force energy beyond kids? Because there's sometimes, and I come across articles all the time, or you could see it in society, is like the postpartum depression or the postpartum, like, oh wow, I brought in life into the world, I'm a lively person. And some of those women really struggle with rebounding their life force energy. It could take them 6 months, it could take them a year. Obviously, it's all new beginnings. But I wanted your take on, whether you're pregnant or you've had kids or not, or whatever walks in terms of a woman, uh, what type of life force energy can be cultivated over time, um, and also beyond big benchmarks like having a child.
Wow, this is a really good question. And part of the postpartum, there, all the bodies get involved with postpartum, but the emotional and mental body really get fragmented during that time, because and it's affected heavily by, the hormones that are happening, and just the psychological element of, releasing what you were love and nurturing for so long, and it just leaving you. It's that love is gone. That beautiful thing that I loved so much inside of me is gone, and that can hit the unconscious in a way that's very powerful. And women don't always know how to handle that, because it's not just a concept. It's a visceral thing. It's a physical. I felt it. It was here, and I love it, and I loved it, and I still love it, but it's not in me anymore. And so all of my joy feels like it has been taken away. And don't get me wrong, that's not what every single woman with postpartum is going to think and feel. I'm just saying there's some roots here that are going on. There's a basic platform that you go from, and then you find what's going to cater to every single person. So it might not, what I said might not apply to every person with postpartum, but I think there's, out of the women that I've worked with that have postpartum and had it, a lot of, if I were to encapsulate what they would say about it, that would be generally it. So in order to begin to heal something like that and getting back to a place of feeling whole and complete, you would get to really take a look at the psychological aspect. You get to look at all the bodies, of course. So individually, we're looking at the psychological aspect of the one thing that you put so much joy and love and light into. Just because that part of you left doesn't mean that it still isn't within you. And you get to reconnect to the part of you that created that love and joy to begin with, that allowed life to happen. It's not gone. It's just a part of it is growing outside of you now as opposed to inside. But it doesn't mean the joy and love are gone. And coming to grips with that unconsciously takes a little bit of work. And not all women are going to be able to get to that very quickly, because it's just it's such an emotional experience, for a good reason. Because you're sharing a space, you're sharing a soul with something else. And it feeds, that symbiosis is very, it's nothing short of miraculous, really. And that really gets to be looked at. And sometimes it's hormonal too. So sometimes it's heavily on the hormonal side. And the hormones, for a lot of women right after pregnancy, are really out of whack. So they have a really hard time with reeling that back in. Not just with, and their physical body too, they have a hard time reeling that back in. And it's a real challenge, depending on the pregnancy and depending on how their bodies work and how their ancestry worked, and how their bloodline worked. So, but there's a lot of different ways to go at it. So I would look at the physical body. Obviously, if they're under the care of a physician when it comes to postpartum, I'm sure the physician would be doing all the necessary tests. At least we would hope so. And so in that end, just make sure that end is taken care of, and you're really taking care of yourself and loving yourself. And then the other part of it, spiritually and emotionally and mentally, would be the things that I discussed. And the understanding that spiritually, if you still are seeking love outside of self and don't have a pillar of unconditional love within you, the separation of the soul from your body out into the world would be really intense for you if you haven't achieved self-love yet. Because you would have felt like that was the thing that was loving you. And then if you're devoid of that love suddenly, it would feel devastating, because you wouldn't have figured out how to love yourself, and it would feel like just all the love is gone. So you really get to look at that and figure out what that means for you and why. And really start on the path of self-love and serious self-care. And then and I'm not talking about going and get your nails done or your hair done. That's not what I mean by self-care. I'm talking about getting in there and really falling in love with yourself and having conversations and journaling and nurturing not just your mental and emotional body, but your physical body. Like, what do I really need to eat today? How much rest do I get to have? Do I get to exercise? What is the doctor telling me to do? Stuff like
Hmm. So good. I was thinking of how you brought it back to the pillar, one's pillar. Do you think, in those situations, the ones that do the best are really honed into their pillar before ha- having their child? Because I feel like the ones that really do well are the ones, like you mentioned, are asking themselves, how much sleep do I get? How much, really nourishing through self love and having a stronger pillar than some that aren't quite strong in it. They go through it, they have their child, and then it's almost like a chaos. What came to mind, Guru, and I think of the pillar as like a a buoy out in the ocean, you guys. So if that pillar isn't strong into the ground, the waves of life are going to be, grabbing you and taking you all over. What would you say on that in terms of the pillar before and after
that.
um, that?
Definitely, I would say that no matter what you go through in life, if your pillar is strong, then you're going to have an easier time. So there's a lot of trauma involved with childbirth, whether it's a natural childbirth, whether it's a C-section, whether it just there's a lot of trauma, and it's a beautiful type of trauma. It's a beautiful beginning, but at the same time, it's still trauma, and when we don't have a solid pillar, any type of trauma at all is going to weaken our natural state. So if we are working on the pillar of who we believe we are and what we can count on from ourselves all the time. So if for those of you that don't know what a pillar is, and we're just saying, what is this pillar thing they keep saying? Well, so uh, so part of my teachings has to do with understanding who you are at the core of your being, which is your pillar. And you would imagine a pillar too, because that's just it's something that would be strong, going from top to bottom in your body and in your emotional and mental and spiritual state. So this pillar would be something that you could count on all the time for you, who you get to be. So for my pillar, it would be I am the embodiment of unconditional love towards everything and everyone all of the time. And no matter what decision I make, no matter what I do, every single decision that I make and every single word that I say bounces off of that pillar. And I will make all of my decisions based on that one thing. It's the one thing you can count on yourself to be. So, unconditional love towards everything and everyone all of the time, including myself, everyone. I mean, I'm fiercely, unconditionally loving myself and everyone and everything, and it's just, and that's actually it covers a lot of ground. Honestly, it covers a lot of ground because it means that you get to stand very powerfully where you're at. Sometimes it means you get to be very proactive to make sure that every situation is win-win if you have the control and navigating that. It's really about understanding what's appropriate and what isn't. So that's my pillar. And if you know that that's your pillar and you can count on it all the time, then you know who you are. And so many people in this world do not. They have no idea who they are, and they float, and they have a really hard time with it's just that it's like they're lost.
Mhm.
But if you know that's who you are and that's how you always stand and that's what every decision is based off of, then you can live life with a lot more confidence
Mhm.
and strength and not have a problem with just navigating through your life. So, that's the way I stand. I would encourage anyone to stand that way and
Mhm.
and be proactive about it. And it has a lot. I mean, it is the most powerful stand you can take, bar none. Bar none. So it's not about being a doormat at all. It's not about laying down because somebody else wants something. Oh, okay, sure, you can take advantage of me. That's not unconditional love. It's not.
Mhm.
Unconditional love means you're on it, and you're not going to settle for less. And that's not a doormat. That's
Mhm.
power. So,
So
uh,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
It's all you guys, it all embodies what we're talking about. You have a strong pillar, you're going to have even stronger life force because like you said, Guru, you know who you are, you know where you stand. Um, and it just beams out of you, you know. I think as my pillar has gotten stronger with working with you and the things that I'm doing daily, it just becomes apparent that like, wow, this person really loves themselves and they love other people unconditionally, and that radiates outward, you know, and that brings up the energy higher because if you feel loved unconditionally, you guys, you know, anything's possible of what we can create. And then that radiates outward where you're like, hey, I love everything unconditionally. Um, and also, I liked how you said, "Don't be a doormat," because so many people can become that, you know? So the next question was for the males. How do you and through just your experiences of working with your clients, um, how do men keep their life force energy more pure, and also readily available to protect, like, society? So protecting women and making a safe place and also children in our world.
Mm. So the very first thing that would get to happen is awareness.
Mhm.
Awareness of, and I think I did mention this earlier, awareness of your output, awareness of what your agenda is creating, and awareness of what your agenda is. So if your agenda isn't pure, then it's going to show up in your actions, whether or not you think they're being hidden or not. They're going to show up, and it's very transparent. So it's very. I don't think people understand how obvious their emotions or what they're hiding is when they say and just go about their everyday life. They think, I'm hiding this really well. No one's going to ever be able to tell except for me. Well, it's not true. It's not
Mhm.
true. You're fooling yourself. Everything that you're hiding inside of you is very obvious depending on your actions, because
Mhm.
that's where the place that it's coming from. And if anyone knows anything about, just basic psychology, or if they're used to working with people for a living, they're going to see it very
Uh-huh.
easily. So it's just they're practiced at it. They know, they understand the input versus the output and what is created from the belief systems within. uh, it's just it's something that can be studied. Anyone can figure this out if they pick up the right book or they go to the right teacher. It's definitely obvious. So you're not fooling anyone. Just wanted to say. Uh, but as far as so the accountability as far as what you're putting out there, and really the recognition of your output, and being able to understand that, whatever agenda you might have, being able to admit that too, because I think that there's a lot, not all men, but there's quite a few men that have a hard time with talking about their feelings. And
Mhm.
maybe it was because they were raised to not have feelings or not be allowed to have feelings because they needed to be strong. And strength, for some reason, in our society, with certain kinds of families, they decided that strength meant that you didn't say anything, you didn't express your feelings, and you were just, the power behind everything, the action. No, let's do this. It's done. I've taken care of it. That kind of thing. And that's not power. It's not. It's power is when you can use all four of your bodies at the same time, including your emotion, in order to create a specific result. Power is when you are not afraid of your own emotions and can express them with precision in a way that people will understand. Power is not hiding them, shoving your feelings down, pretending like nothing is wrong, and then doing the action anyway. But if you've taken care of your emotions, and if you're feeling a lot of emotions and you're able to temper that in order to handle the situation in a way that's healthy, yeah, okay, that's power.
Mhm.
So but it's not about the shoving, and it's not about the ignoring. So as far as, you know, supporting men with being able to use their life force in a way that makes sense, there's a lot of different elements. I mean, I think it's very powerful when a man uses his sexual life force in a way that's positive. And a
Mhm.
lot of men don't know how to do that because they were never taught, and it's not their fault, but they don't know how. So, you know, because there's a large percentage out there of men that use their sexual life force, and women do it too, to manipulate,
Yep.
for a grappling of power. And
Mhm.
it's just, you know, it's a cheap way to go about life, honestly. But if you were to utilize it in order to heal, and in order to, you know, push a momentum forward in your life because it's so powerful, that's awesome. And it should be done that way. It should be.
Mhm.
So, um, I'm thinking. Did I miss anything? Did you? Was there more to that question you wanted me to answer?
Yeah, that was no, I love it. Spot on, Guru. And I wanted to bring one thing up of what you said in terms of the emotional side for men. I recently came across something that women naturally talk to other women more per week. So they're talking about their things of what's going on. And it was saying that men are less likely to talk about their emotions and their mindset because they don't have that brotherhood, right? As we go, and what I've seen too is like when men get married or have families, sometimes that our whole focal point is the family, making sure our wives are taken care of, making sure the kids, and on the individual aspect, sometimes you know those conversations are lacking where a lot of the times women, it's just a natural thing. They talk more, they express more, and it's a natural thing. So, one thing that came across for me was like, who are some men that I talk to on a weekly basis that I talk about those things? And it was a good learning point. But then I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, there's not a lot of men that really wanna reach out, "Hey, this is what's going on." I was thinking of one of my good friends that I've known for a while, and I called him or "Hey, hey," like, and I knew something was up. We hopped on the phone and talked some things up that was going on, but I think it's a nat I loved how you said with the emotional side because it's not a natural thing to be like, "Hey, we're struggling, we're this, we're that," because our society has told us. But then I'm kind of zooming out here, in the so-called like mating realm, the weak, you don't want to be seen as weak, right? As a male. So that's sometimes suppressed. And that's what comes up in our society is males suppress so many emotions, so many traumas that have happened over a lifetime. So but for any men that are listening, but also to women, if you have male friends or your significant other, is really challenge them to hop on the phone, with their guy friends, or just giving them permission to meet up with them more. I think a lot about married men too, of like going golf with the guys. It's like the women always make the joke, but it's like us men, we're always like, yeah, go be with your friends when thinking what fills up our tank. So that's what came to mind for me. And then in terms of pure energy, uh, just being consistent. I think consistency with yourself as a male, that's really been awareness for myself of one, how do you treat yourself? Two, what's filling up your cup so you could serve others? Um, and also just being bold in what you're doing, like being sure of, hey, like I'm gonna make this decision, and I'm, gonna be that leader, right? There's such a lack of leadership on the men's side in this world, and that's what society's trying to do is break down us males, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and really take us from what we want to naturally do. We want to naturally lead. We naturally want to protect. And there's avenues that are distracting for men. So one thing that comes to mind, Guru, is the tangibility, is the physical. You know, for men, I think physical is like, if you're not in the gym or if you're not working out, work on that first. That's tangible. That's something of self love, and work your way up that way. Um, because I'm a firm believer is when you work out, when you feel good and you're looking good, that radiates outward with your relationships as a male. Um, and I think of the males that don't take good care of themselves is they start getting into different things that start taking themselves out of the equation or with their relationships too. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to add that side of the emotions because I think it was a good point that I came across, men being able to open up, right? Because I think women. I read another article. Women want men to open up, but when say we cry or we open up, they're like, "Who is this guy?" You know, because they're not used to maybe holding space for men too. So it's definitely a delicate balance. We're all here to support each other. But there's also I think, a lot of bloodline stuff over the years, and just how we've been formed to today's world. So, did you want
Absolutely.
to add anything to that before I go to?
Thank
We're gonna
you. Yeah,
wrap.
just one thing. Just I think that part of the reason why how it originated that women were allowed to have emotions and to talk and to share and to cry and all of that and men weren't. I think part of where it came from is because women have cycles. And when women go through their cycles, their menstrual cycles, emotions can't be helped a lot of the time.
Mhm.
They're gonna. A lot of women will go through that. They will cry. They will, and a lot of the time it runs away from with them. You know, they can't help themselves, and so I think there was some sort of understanding that that's just the way it was, and but because men didn't cycle, they were expected to stay steady because there's no cycle there. You just stay steady. There's no excuse for you. And also, because I think men, in a lot of ways, at one point were seen as, like you said, the protectors and the ones that would, keep women safe as they grew children in their bellies and all kinds of things. So, but, I, and it, guys, I mean, we're getting to a point in our evolution where it's truly okay to step out of that archaic mindset. I mean, you have an emotional body. You get
Mhm.
to experience that. Uh, there's a lot of guys that start men's groups where they allow themselves just to talk and to cry and to express feelings where in a safe space with other men where they feel safe. A lot of men will do it with their wives, their girlfriends, they're just friends that are however however that looks. So it does happen. It just there are still groups that are having a hard time with letting go, and I really hope that starts to change because we all have a right to have the expression of our feelings. So
Love
anyway.
that. Thanks, Guru. Uh, so it looks like we'll end on this one, Guru. And I always love, as you know, and you love doing it too, is like a call to action for people tuning in. Uh, what if today, people tuning in, like, first off, if you guys have questions, definitely reach out. Guru's going to go over how you could do that, or you could drop it in the comments. Because life force energy, sexual energy, it's definitely complex, you guys. It's no black and white. There's a lot of gray area as you guys tune into today, a lot of different levels, and understanding and also understanding, meaning in yourself, um, is what are some ways, Guru, someone can increase their life force energy today? And what do you recommend? Like, say this was a session right now and someone was like, hey, like, what are some of the tools, And you could break it down as a collective, one that's generic, or because we brought up some things for women and some things for males, you can decide.
Sure. Okay. Well, a couple of really easy things to do would be to recognize that, because the mindset of feeling powerless, honestly, is a very specific little nugget. Uh, a lot of the people who feel powerless feel like they don't have the resources in order to ascend to a different place that's more effective for them. So one of the mantras should be, I am resourceful. I am resourceful. I'm able to create whatever resources that I need, and it's all I need is within me right now. I don't need to create anything new on the outside to make something happen necessarily. I have it right now, and that's all I need. As opposed to, how am I ever going to get that thing over there? Oh, it's so far away. No, don't think that way. Start expanding your consciousness by understanding that you're limitless, and start recognizing what limiting beliefs are the ones that are holding you back, and have a come to Jesus moment with it, and understand that your limiting belief system isn't real. It's just a story you made up at one point because you felt like it was based on your circumstances and conditions. But these stories can be changed and altered, and people do it all of the time, and once they do, their lives transform. There's proof everywhere that this is the way it is. So whether you want to believe that it's true or not, that the thing that you've been believing in with yourself for so long, the thing that's anchoring you and stopping you, it doesn't mean that it's real. It's not. It's a story that you created in order to navigate through life. And if you want to change it, you have the power to do it. You really do. And as soon as you change that, that doesn't have to be your story anymore. You don't have to create any of that garbage anymore. But start being aware of what it is that you're creating so that you can start making changes. That awareness is the very first step. So please do that. What do you think, John?
I love that. It's good because I think a lot of people aren't aware of what they're doing and creating that, cultivating that, you guys. And one thing that stands out when you would help me, Guru, and obviously you continue to help me, is once that awareness is there, you guys, is really just putting all your energy in that until it happens, until it flourishes, because there's nothing more attractive for yourself than to really sit down, look at your resources, look at your mantras that she just shared, and what are your limiting beliefs, and working out those limiting beliefs, gaining clarity, and then doing everything to get to that whatever goal or lifestyle or whatever it is that comes up for you. Um, you decide on that, but there's something about using what we talked about, your life force energy, to create that for your life and to create flow. And when you limit those obstacles of not having awareness, or maybe your limiting beliefs or stories, beautiful things come out of that. So I just wanted to add that, because you always say that to me, is like, once those obstacles, limiting beliefs, and you have just really, John, just really work hard to get there. And once you get there, it doesn't stop. It's just you keep feeling with it. And so that stood out for me when you bring that up, Guru. So, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Love you guys. Super blessed to be here. Episode 10 of many. Um, and I'll let Guru take it away in terms of answering questions or where you could find her. She's taking new clients as well. We have communal sound baths. We just had one on Sunday, which is incredible here if you're locally in Orange County, in Mission Viejo. Highly recommend community events, you guys. We're all here. We're all looking for connection. And if you want to do some stuff individually, definitely reach out to her as well. So thank you guys. I'll hand it over to Guru.
You're so sweet. Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you're watching this as a recording, awesome. Can't wait to see you in the next one. If you're watching it live and have watched it live, so grateful. Please tune in next week. I'm going to be in the Caribbean next week, and I'm going to do my best to do this live on a cruise ship. I don't know how that
Let's
looks, but we're going to do it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Um, yeah, I'll try not to wear a bikini because nobody wants to see that. So, but anyway, so I'm really grateful that you're all here. If you have any questions, please do reach out at any time and leave a comment. And I do have my email available somewhere on my page there, and I might have even dropped it in below. But if not, it's pretty. It's I am shamananda@gmail.com. Just send me an email if you're having some questions about your life, so that we can we can share it and answer it live. We don't have to mention your name or even specific details. We can talk about whatever you want us to talk about. But if you want us to break down a situation for you live within the next coming weeks, then let us know so we can support. So grateful. If there's anything that we said today that was awesome and that you wanted to share with another person because you think it might affect their life, please do so. We're doing this for you guys, and we really just want to support in any way we can with information that helps people. So please help us spread the word. We love you. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can be ready for the next videos that come out and be notified. We love you, and we can't wait to see you next time. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Be
Love you
blessed.
guys. Take care.